Drawing.
Welcome to Onourshelf. Today what I have is a full review of the Samsung Galaxy S5. So just in case you missed our unboxing video earlier, here it is again in about 10 seconds. And basically what you get in the box is the phone, a USB cable, a wall charger, some quick start guides, and some earphones. So let's start the review. So starting with the design of the phone, on the bottom we have the flap covering the USB 3.0 port. You also have a microphone right next to that. On the right hand side of the phone we have the sleep wake button. On top we have our 3.5mm audio jack, another microphone, and next to that our IR blaster window. On the left hand side we have our volume rocker controls. On the front of the phone up top we have our earpiece speaker. Next to that we have an ambient light sensor and a proximity sensor. As we move over a little bit more we have a 2 megapixel front facing camera. Now still on the front of the phone, but as we scroll down to the bottom we have our home button, which is also a fingerprint scanner. To the left of that we have not an actual button but a touch sensitive button that shows you the apps that you currently have open. And to the right we have a touch sensitive back button. Onto the back of the S5 we have a 16 megapixel camera which takes great pictures and videos, and right below that we have a heart rate monitor. On the back as well at the bottom we have our speaker. On the right hand side of the S5 we have our little pry port so we can stick our thumbnail in there and pry the back piece off. Now one thing we noticed inside the back cover is this rubber seal, because this phone is IP67 certified, which means it's water resistant, not waterproof, and we'll talk more about that later. So on the back of the phone we have a removable 2800 milliamp battery, and right here we have dual slots, one for a micro SD card and one for a micro SIM card. So overall I do like the design of the new S5. It doesn't feel slippery in the hand, it's pretty easy to hold with one hand. However, navigating through menus with one hand might be an issue depending on the size of your hands. And the phone looks and feels pretty solid overall. That is until you hold the HTC One M8 or an iPhone 5S. That's when you realize this phone might not be as premium as you may have thought. But neither one of those phones have a removable battery, nor are they water resistant like this one. As far as software goes, this phone features Android 4.4.2 KitKat with Samsung's TouchWiz software, combined with the hardware of a quad-core Snapdragon 801 processor clocked at 2.5 GHz with 2 gigs of RAM, which is pretty much the exact same specs as the HTC One M8 by the way. But the hardware and the software makes for some pretty snappy performance combined. Starting with the software, the overall interface of the Galaxy S5 is pretty familiar, so if you're coming from the Samsung Galaxy S4 or anything previously, just Android in general, then the learning curve is really small. Samsung's custom TouchWiz UI does change things up a little bit, but most of it's good rather than bad. Scroll down from the top to reveal the pretty familiar settings layout. It's not until you touch the actual settings button when things start to get a little bit overwhelming. They do have all the menus organized under their category as well. It's just a lot to look through. If we scroll all the way to the right from the home screen, we have the My Magazine app, which is pretty cool. It talks to Flipboard, keeps you up to date with the latest news, and it has cool graphics and animation, so it makes it fun to read certain articles. And also, if you're just into sports and art, you can get rid of the political and the business sections or business categories of the My Magazine app and just put those particular categories up there, so when you go to the My Magazine, those particular categories pop up only. You also have a fingerprint scanner, which for me worked 95% of the time, so I really didn't have any problems with it. You can also use it to make PayPal purchases and purchases in the App Store. We also have this S-Health app, which can be used for a number of fitness related things, but in this instance we're going to be using it to monitor our heart rate. Simply place a finger over the flash, be quiet and be still, and voila, you have your heart rate. Is this something we're going to use a lot? More than likely not, but it can definitely be useful. The only part of the OS that I found to be somewhat laggy would be navigating through either the Google Play Store or the Samsung App Store. A lot of that may have to do with the actual Wi-Fi or cellular connection that you're using. Some days images or apps would load really quick in the App Store, some days they would load really slow, and both days I would have 4 bars, so it just depends on what day it was. So that was kind of weird, and that's not unique to this particular phone. I've experienced that with other phones as well, including the iPhone. Now another area where this phone tends to lag at sometimes is when loading videos in the gallery. It loads pictures fine, but sometimes when I load a video, there's like a 1 second delay, which isn't bad, but it is there. Other than that, the S5 handles everything else really well. Customizing your home screen, moving apps around, closing out apps, multitasking. It's a breeze for this phone to do. And I didn't want to go too crazy with benchmarking apps. I'm only going to use one, and right here we're using Antutu. And on the S5 we got a score of 35,747, which is slightly higher than the HTC One M8 and a lot higher than the iPhone 5S. And to put that into perspective, this phone can easily handle any app or game you can throw at it right now. Now that you've seen the beautiful display on the S5, let me start off by saying, in my opinion, this phone easily has the best display on the market as of right now. I have yet to have seen a phone with a better display. It features a 5.1-inch Full HD Super AMOLED display with 432 pixels per inch pixel density, making it extremely easy to view outdoors in daylight. Images look extremely crisp with high contrast, and HD videos simply look amazing. The only thing negative I can say about the display on this phone is that you simply get a lot of glare depending on what type of light is behind you, but you also have that same problem with pretty much every other smartphone too. Other than that, the display is a real strong point for this phone.
Whoa! I did not see that coming. Twist ending. My stories never end like that. Yes! 2 stories in one night! Okay.
Even if Snake Eyes and Jinx grab Storm, they're still halfway around the world. We're on our own.
Next up, the rear camera. It features a 16 megapixel camera which records in up to 4K video. Yeah, that's right, 4K video. And I'll start by saying the 4K video capture is good as long as the camera is completely still and pretty much not moving. If you decide to turn around or try to catch a bird flying in the air, not so good. As far as taking pictures go, it takes nice, crisp, clear, bright, vibrant pictures, especially in daylight situations. In low light situations is where this camera is challenged at. Now I will admit, it does take better low light pictures than the S4 did, however there's still room for improvement. Now in a second we're going to switch from still images to 1080p video. The video that you're about to see was not recorded in 4K, but there is a mixture of low light and well lit situations. Now as far as settings for the actual camera itself, you have lots of those: picture size, picture stabilization, special effects, flash on or off, timer on or off, video resolution, auto white balance, exposure values, voice controls, guidelines, shutter sounds, and lots more. We also have lots of camera modes as well. Starting from the left, we have dual camera, virtual tour, panorama, shot and more, beauty face, and auto, which is what most of us use. But if you're more of an experienced picture taker, then there's plenty of options for you to play around with. Once you've taken your pictures, browsing through the gallery is pretty fast. It's not until I start to load a video, I experience about a second delay. So nothing major, but it is there. A few more things to talk about before we close, and one of them being size. The S5 is 5.5 inches in height, 2.9 inches in width, and 8.1 millimeters thick. So that makes it larger in every way than the iPhone 5S. But compared to the HTC One M8, it's lighter, thinner, a tad bit shorter, but a little bit wider. The next thing is battery life. The S5 has a 2800 milliamp removable battery, and let me tell you that the battery life is excellent on this particular phone. We spent 6 hours at the zoo with this phone, the iPhone 5S, and the One M8, and this phone easily beat out both of them in terms of battery life. Now, the iPhone 5S doesn't count so much because it was over 7 months old, so the battery's kind of worn down. But the One M8, after 6 hours of use on full brightness, had right around 28% battery life left. This phone, 6 hours of use, same scenarios, had right around 48 to 50% battery life left. And by the way, the iPhone died, but that was my daily use phone for the past 7 months, and I use it every single day, so it doesn't really count. And if that's not enough for you, the S5 features an ultra power savings mode, which basically strips the S5 down to just 6 essential apps that you choose, and at 54% battery life, for example, it allows me to have 6.7 days of standby time. As far as call quality goes, no one had any problems hearing me, and I didn't have any problems hearing anyone else, and I only experienced one drop call within 2 weeks of having this phone. Air and motion gestures are still here for those of you who use them. I'm not one of them. The IR blaster on top of the phone makes use for a great secondary remote. You can buy this phone in 16 and 32 gigabyte configurations, and you can also configure it yourself up to 128 gigabytes via a micro SD card. You have 4 colors to choose from: charcoal black, shimmery white, copper gold, and electric blue. So to sum it up, there's a lot of things I like about the S5. It's not a huge improvement over the S4, but it does have a big high resolution display and a very powerful processor. It's water resistant, has an excellent 16 megapixel camera, and excellent battery life. As far as what I don't like about the S5, it's made out of plasticky material that's trying to be something that it's not. And well, that's really it. So to make my friend Reaper, Centaur, Dragon, Tiger happy, I'm gonna give this phone a 4 out of 5 stars rating. So that's been my review of the Samsung Galaxy S5. Take care, I'll see you guys in our next video, and thanks for watching.